Mary, welcome again to Wise Lives. I'm back with my friend, Dr. Mary Wren. It's wonderful to have you again, Mary, with us for this episode. I'd love us to chat this time specifically about anxiety and mental health and stress. It strikes me that as you talk to people, this is just such a big one today. And it was funny for me recently, I found in my parents' old home this old book from the 1900s. It was covered in dust. And the title was Living from Your Nerves. And it was written way back in 1900. And it was all about anxiety. Yeah. But it was funny, the language was different. But the symptoms and the descriptions were the same. And how they described it just made us really laugh. And it made me think humankind are the same from generation to generation. But at the same time, we seem to talk about anxiety a lot more. And I've been wondering why that is and why is stress such a big thing? And of course, Western life, urban life, which we're in the middle of here, is stressful. Tell me, Mary, is it true? Is anxiety more prevalent today than maybe 100 years ago?
I mean, from sitting behind the desk in the GP surgery, I would say it feels like it is.
Yes.
Yeah. And just from conversations that, you have with neighbours or with friends or, in the supermarket, I mean, it does seem like that, doesn't it? And the media promote that as well. Yeah. So, it does feel like
But we're a lot more open about talking about mental health, which is a good thing, isn't it?
It is a good thing. I don't know if it's a good thing that it becomes such a focus.
Okay, interesting.
Because, I mean, there has always been, there's always been things to make us feel anxious or stressed or fearful, and it's probably been different in different generations. And during the war, it would have been a whole different set of stresses for people.
Yes,
what it is now. Different in different countries. If you have wondering if you're going to get fed today, then
you would be stressed.
That's going to be stressful,
yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But we have a whole. I think in our Western culture we have such a whole different set of stresses, and it's become normal to be stressed. It's become normal to be anxious. It becomes part of conversation. So we actually give it quite a lot of attention, and I just sometimes wonder if that actually makes it grow, and that's sometimes not a good thing.
Yeah, I totally get that. So as followers of Jesus, that would be one for us to watch. Yeah. Because we've got to be real and open about things, but we can choose stress or not as well.
And we have an enemy, don't we?
Yes.
We have an enemy who wants us completely distracted and completely bound up with other stuff, so that we're not free to be walking with Jesus and following him and growing in character and fulfilling what he's put us here for. So, if we can be kept feeling really, really anxious and fearful and stressed, and that's what we think about all the time, and that's what we focus on all the time, then we're not doing something else. So I think sometimes it's helpful to remember that maybe he's jumped on the bandwagon a bit and promotes some things.
Because culture defines us a lot.
Yeah.
It would be just the same being a Christian, and so we make a choice about that, who we're going to listen to, which significant voice, and how we will be defined. How do you think, Mary, we can live well? I mean, the reality is, if you're a mum with young kids, or if you're a student today, you're under a lot of pressure. If you've got a significant job in the city, if you've got young adult children that you can't control, life is stressful. How do we walk that well? What choices could we make to be aware of?
And I think it's important to say that some stress is completely normal.
Yes.
And it's there, isn't it? Like you say, in all these different situations, some stress is normal. It's normal to feel a bit stressed before you I don't know, before you do an exam, or if you're about to perform, or before you speak, in front of people, you're going to feel a bit stressed. And some of that's good, because actually then, you're alert and you're ready.
It's
and
adrenaline.
The adrenaline's there at the right level to do what you need to do. Or, if you suddenly a big lion comes running out of the jungle at you, then you want to be able to run fast. So the fight-flight thing is that's a God-given mechanism.
It's good stress.
To protect us, that's good stress. And what isn't good is if we're living like that all the time. So if we're constantly on this high alert where, we can't stop and our mind won't switch off, and our body's starting to show physical effects from that. I've been in that place in my own life. I've been in that place where I've had that kind of level of stress to the point where I couldn't function. And it's a horrible place to be. And it's a build-up of things often, I think, and we don't take good care to keep it in check. We're not disciplined in that, and it gets out of hand. And I think the first thing is probably to acknowledge that that's where you are, that you're in that place where actually I can't function, or it's out of hand, or I need help. And talking to someone wise, sharing it with someone who's wise, is a good idea. Just starting to bring it out into the light, bring it out into the open, and acknowledge that it's there. I think living well through stressful situations, because we're all going to have them. Jesus said, we will have trouble, but take heart. I've overcome in this world. We'll have trouble, but take heart. I've overcome the world. And so there are lots of things that we can do practically. I think just really simple things like eating well, not having too much sugary processed food, because that's what certainly I tend to go to. 200-gram chocolate bar. It's not that good for me in that situation. So eating well. Resting.
Sleep is huge.
Sleep is really, really important. We need to rest. We're meant to have rest. We're meant to function from rest. And I think we sometimes need, particularly again in the Western culture, we need to challenge that. We need to actually say no to things. We need to stop doing some things. We need to stop looking at our phones just before we go to bed. Put the phone downstairs, switch it off.
Because
don't have it on
screens
all
really
the time.
affect, yes.
And just the stuff that you read on them that just keeps you hyper all the time. So really practical things around that. Exercise, getting out in the fresh air, walks in the Peak District. That was so therapeutic for me when I was sort of burnt out, really, was just being outside and looking at nature, looking at trees, looking at flowers, looking at God's creation, refocusing again, just all this stuff that overwhelmed me, bringing it actually and saying, God, I've given this too much priority. I've got things out of line. I'm sorry. I confess it. Help me get an order back. Help me get priorities back. Help me get a balance. And a way for me to do that, two ways. One was swimming and the other was walking in the Peak District.
Wow, interesting.
And different people have different things that they know are good for them. So actually starting to build in things that are good for you, that you know are good for you. Starting to get rid of the things you know are not good for you, and being really ruthless about that. And that might mean not seeing some people. It might mean not doing some social things. It might mean, not switching your computer off and your screens off. And you might need help with that, because those are quite difficult things to do.
So do you mean, Mary, watching for triggers?
Yeah.
So knowing yourself.
Yeah, knowing yourself and
really
looking
interesting.
at what it is that's come in that's just made the situation. And I think often to start with, that's a good first step, really practical physical things. And then you can start to identify maybe what's driven you to get into that situation in the first place. And I think it's often back to the things about where I get my value from, wanting to be liked by people, wanting to be in control of things. Anxiety is often linked with things that feel out of control or uncertain. So, if I quite like to be in control, I like to be in charge of what's going on in my life.
Most people do, if we're honest. Yes.
So situations where something is out of control, that might be our children, or it might be a work situation or exams or whatever it is, we're going to start to feel anxious about that. But if we can acknowledge, actually, God, you're in control. You're in control of everything. You know everything. You've seen it all. You know the beginning and the end. I can trust you. I'm going to choose to trust you today, even though it feels out of control.
So that's where friendship with God and trusting God does make it very different.
Yes.
From somebody trying to navigate life without that.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to navigate life without him.
Yes. Yeah.
Because where do you set your anchor? How do you have a strong foundation if you don't know him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where we see people tossed around with that.
Yeah. But I think it's also, those of us who do know him, we forget. We forget him. We forget.
And we forget to live well too.
We forget to live well, and
Yeah.
we forget that what he says is true,
Yeah.
and who he is who he is, and he's perfectly able to sort things out, and even if they seem impossible, nothing's impossible for him. So a lot of the things I've done in my life in getting well again, it was re-establishing those foundations. At one point I wrote truth on the walls of our hallway in silver pen, because I need to be surrounded by truth and reminding myself of what's actually true, so that when I feel like this, I put that under what is actually true. And I'm going to go and do that even though I feel anxious, because I know this is true. So sometimes we have to go against the feeling and actually base what we're doing on what's actually true. We have an absolute truth in him.
Yeah, really
which
good.
a lot of people don't have.
Really good.
Yeah.
I know in my life it's helped a lot to watch my rhythms.
Yes, yeah.
So if I'm working non-stop, and sometimes that might be being real with yourself, that you mightn't be working as in the office, but you still might be thinking about work.
Yeah.
So having holiday times where
Yes, yeah.
I actually choose to read a novel or
Yeah.
a silly magazine or something,
yeah.
which I wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
Just because it's good to switch
Yes.
off your mind and
Yeah.
calm and just recognise that come down from adrenaline
Yeah.
where we're busy.
Yeah.
So I found having a day off, having Sabbath,
Yes.
and connecting with God
Yes.
at this time has been really life-giving to me.
Yeah. And worship, I think the
Yes.
other thing I found really helpful was choosing to worship.
Yeah.
And the way that I did that was to load up my iPod, one of the old ones, on the old iPods, but I've got a new one now, but load it up with worship songs that spoke of who he is and truth. And if I was sat up in the night feeling anxious and panicky and palpitations, then okay, I need to plug myself in now, and I need to focus on the words in these songs. And some nights I would do that all night.
Wow.
And I would read the Psalms, and I would read, speak them out, speak it out loud. When we speak stuff out loud, something changes, we hear it, our spirit hears it.
Speaking out is very important.
Yeah, so speaking out, worship, choosing to do that, whatever I feel like, and things shift. It might not shift straight away, we might have to persevere, but things shift.
And I suppose that's the reality. We can be empowered
Yes.
to actually make a difference to our lives and circumstances, and it's stepping out of that victim mindset. Oh, life is hard and I'm stressed, etc. To say, actually, no, I will say no to this.
Yes. And maybe your life still will be hard.
Yes.
I mean, some people, sometimes circumstances are really hard. All sorts of situations.
But we could be empowered to live it in a better way.
Yeah, but we can choose to be in that situation either, like you say, as the victim of it, or as an overcomer in it, and we have the choice in that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That period I've heard you share about before, when you went through anxiety, so you have a real authority to speak on this. You know what it's like to feel anxious, and you know what it's like to be free of that. Was that gradual healing for you, or was it sudden? And any final top tip you could give a listener today on how to, I suppose, say no to anxiety and find a freedom in it?
Yeah. I think so. It was a process for me, and the process was very painful, and it was hard work, and I needed to want it enough to persevere. So maybe we need to think about what we really want, and whether we're willing to count the cost of process and what that involves. So for me, it involved unpacking stuff from my childhood, things that happened in my life that I'd found difficult, acknowledging them, being real about them, changing how I thought, asking for forgiveness, choosing to forgive, choosing to read God's word over and over again, persevere even when I didn't feel it. I had fear and anxiety and depression all sort of tied in together. Other things that helped were being surrounded by people that I knew loved me, whatever I was like. So who loved me when I was wailing and when I was positive. So we need to be real. We need to be honest,
And there's a
emotionally honest.
church family, that's
about
really
what's
important, that we
going on.
love. Yes.
And we don't have to be fixed. It's okay to be in a situation where I'm not fixed yet. I'm on a journey. I think we like to fix people quickly, don't we? And sometimes it's a process, and to actually be well at all levels, and for it to be much more permanent, then it takes time.
True.
And it's worth the time. It's worth however long it takes.
For true transformation.
Yeah. So I got to this point where actually suddenly the fear went, and suddenly the depression went. I had medication as well for depression, and that was really useful to help me function so that I could start to unpack some of these things. And I think we shouldn't be frightened of medical help.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That medical help, God's given it. It's useful. And my brain chemistry isn't normal when I'm depressed.
Yeah. So God can work through medicine.
God can work through medicine to enable you as part of the process. And I think, I've been well from that for 17 years, something like that, but it tries to come back. And sometimes if I'm tired, or there's a lot going on in my life, or I'm physically unwell, I've got a virus, or if I've just been allowing too many things in again, it creeps in again, and I can feel it coming. It's like I know it's hanging around again, and I have the choice what I do with that. So I can choose, okay, I've got to regroup again now. I need to, just take stock of my life again. What am I doing? What's the priority? What's really important? What's God saying? Maybe I need to get into his word again. Remind myself of what's really true again. So I think, it's always going to be a process.
It's the erosion of life, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
That's wise. That's great. I've loved it. You're always just a fountain of wisdom, Mary. You did a talk, I remember, back at the Well. It will be on our podcast about dealing with anxiety in a bit more depth, if somebody's interested to refer to that. If somebody is listening to this and they realise they're struggling big time in this area, anything you'd recommend just to, as we come to land?
I'm a bit like I said earlier, first thing is to acknowledge that there's a problem.
Yes.
Be open and honest, and maybe pick a wise friend, a good friend, someone that you trust, who you can start to talk to. It may be appropriate to go and seek medical help, particularly if it's really severe and disabling and you're not able to function. So go and see your GP. I think that's a good thing to do. There's also actually a lot out there in terms of courses you can access for free. Something called IAPT, Improving Access to Psychological Therapies in Sheffield. You can Google IAPT, IAPT Sheffield. Living well with all sorts of different things. Courses on anxiety and stress control. Really good practical advice for people. And maybe again start to just think about the story. I love stories. What's your life story? Where did you first notice the anxiety? Where did it come in? What was happening? What are the things that have come together? What is God saying about that?
And allow his truth
allow
to
allow Holy Spirit to come and show you what might be at the root of that, and what might be behind it.
That's absolutely brilliant. I want to bless you on this day, particularly as you listen to this. May you walk in peace. May you be encouraged to find just the truth of what it means to be in Christ. We bless you to know that. It's a journey. It's a process. We're all on this journey. I've loved talking with you, Mary. Thank you so much for joining us today. And bless you as you walk out your walk with Jesus.